Now I think our mics are on. Hopefully audio is synced. Yeah, welcome in everyone. Good to see you guys. Hope you guys are all staying safe, staying warm. I'm here in Southern California, so it's going to be, I think, 65 degrees today, so kind of lucky in respect to that. So yeah, we have a couple of press briefings that I wanted to watch and see what's happening with Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden, because we got some peeps. I think I need to make this public. Oh, okay, now we're public. We're good. Sweet. Probably just getting things going here. Here we go. People coming in, streaming in. So we are going to get started with Nancy Pelosi first with her press conference, just because she talks about impeachment, and I think that's what a lot of people want to hear about. So let's get into it.
Good afternoon. I don't know if the word good is a way to describe it, but because yesterday, the President of the United States incited an armed insurrection against America. The gleeful desecration of the U.S. Capitol, which is the temple of our American democracy, and the violence targeting Congress are horrors that will forever stain our nation's history, instigated by the President of the United States. That's why it's such a stain. In calling for this seditious act, the President has committed an unspeakable assault on our nation and our people. I join the Senate Democratic leader in calling on the Vice President to remove this President by immediately invoking the 25th Amendment. If the Vice President and the Cabinet do not act, the Congress may be prepared to move forward with impeachment. That is the overwhelming sentiment of my caucus. And the American people, by the way. Justice will be done to those who carried out these acts, which were acts of sedition and acts of cowardice. To those whose purpose was to deter our responsibility, you have failed. You did not divert the Congress from our solemn constitutional purpose to validate the overwhelming election of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as President and Vice President of the United States. Despite the desecration of our Capitol, we upheld in front of the country and the world the bedrock principle that the people are sovereign and that they hold the power to choose their leaders through the ballot, rejecting this attempted coup on the part of President Trump and his supporters. Accountability is also needed for Republicans in Congress who promoted the extreme conspiracy theories that provoked the violence, encouraged the mob, and who, after desecration of the Capitol, went back to the House floor and continued to push the falsehoods and underpinned this assault that underpinned this assault on our democracy. These Republicans abdicated their oath of office that was taken just 3 days prior to protect the American people and to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. The House worked through the evening and into the morning to nearly 4 a.m. to validate the electoral count, again proclaiming Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as the duly elected President and Vice President of the United States. I just want to say how proud I am of my members. For a while now, our 4 scholars, we call them, Jamie Raskin, Zoe Lofgren, the chair of the Committee of Jurisdiction, Adam Schiff, and Joe Neguse, set forth a plan that was about the Constitution. It wasn't about Donald Trump and all the reasons he shouldn't be president. He was not part of this. It was about the Constitution and how we are a country of law. We are not a monarchy with a king, as Jamie has said over and over again. I want to also thank the members of the Arizona delegation, led by Raul Grijalva, and the Pennsylvania delegation, led by Mike Doyle, the two deans, for the presentations that they made to refute the ridiculous statements being made by our colleagues. For what reason, I don't know, but that wasn't about reason. So I thank them for them. And through all of this week, our swearing in on Sunday, passing our rule and preparing for Wednesday as the week began, the election of two Democrats in Georgia because of the overwhelming participation of people at the grassroots level. So many people. I'm so proud of our House members. Congresswoman Williams, the chair of the Georgia Democratic Party, Lucy McBath, the newly elected Carolyn Bordeaux, David Scott, Mr. Bishop, who was the dean of that delegation, and Hank Johnson. Well, they had their plan already, should they have objected to Georgia, as did Nevada, as did Michigan, as did Wisconsin. So we were prepared. Members worked hard about defending the Constitution, honoring our purpose, to count and ascertain the Electoral College numbers for the presidency. So I was proud of him. And I did over and over again. We're very pleased now that we have, in 13 days, President Joe Biden, a Democratic House majority, and a Democratic Senate majority that will work to heal and restore the soul of our nation. I will close by evoking, as I did last night, the song of St. Francis, our patron saint in San Francisco, whose song of St. Francis is our city's anthem. Lord, make me a channel of thy peace. Where there is darkness, may we bring light. Where there is hatred, love, despair, hope. The list goes on. And so does the time for healing. Take us down a path of unity for our country. With that, I'd be pleased to take any questions. Yes, ma'am.
Encourage cabinet members not to resign so that they can invoke the 25th Amendment?
No, but let's go over that list. Why wouldn't they, if you're a member of the cabinet, a secretary in the cabinet, you're in a line of succession to the presidency, president, vice president, speaker of the House, Senate leader, pro tem, and then Secretary of State. When, just for information of some, when you have the 25th Amendment invoked, that would be calling upon the Vice President, as we hope to do, to take the lead, and with a majority of the cabinet, to be able to unseat the President of the United States. A very dangerous person who should not continue in office. This is urgent. This is emergency of the highest magnitude. So you're Pompeo, the Secretary of State. Do you stand by this president dangerously staying in office? Secretary of the Treasury, Mnuchin. What is it? Is it about success in business later, or is it, do you believe in this? Do we have the list? I know it because I know it. Then the way it goes is Saint Dapiakalhu. That's a mnemonic. Secretary of State, Secretary of Treasury, Secretary of Defense. The acting Secretary of Defense, I don't know what authority he may have, but he certainly has to answer for where the National Guard was yesterday. Secretary of, then Attorney General Barr. Do you subscribe to the presidency of Donald Trump after the act of sedition he committed yesterday? It's next Postmaster General, but that's in when our founders put it together. Interior. The list goes on. Ask each member of the cabinet Do they stand by these actions? Are they ready to say, in the next 13 days, this dangerous man can do further harm to our country, an assault on our democracy, on the first branch of government? Rosen, we spoke to yesterday. Why would he not? Why would he not, as the acting AG, say this is wrong? There are some courageous Republicans who are speaking out. I salute Secretary of Defense Bill Cohen and others defense secretaries who've signed the letter, even before yesterday, about what is going on in the White House and how that is not a good thing for our country, and the message that it sent to the world. A complete tool of Putin, this president is. Putin's goal was to diminish the role of the view of democracy in the world. That's what he has been about. And again, his enabler has been Donald Trump for a long time. That's why I said in that photo when I'm leaving his meeting with you, Mr. President, all roads lead to Putin. Putin wants to undermine democracy. That's what he's about domestically and internationally. And the president gave him the biggest of all of his many gifts to Putin, the biggest gift yesterday. My friends, we are in a very difficult place in our country as long as Donald Trump still sits in the White House. Yes, yes,
you said you may be forced to pursue impeachment. Under what circumstances would you do that, and how long would you give this 25th Amendment process to play out before going down that road?
Well, it's a simple matter. In terms of the Constitution, the Vice President, working with the Cabinet, more than 50% of the Cabinet, can immediately improve the security of our country. That doesn't happen. Jamie Raskin has passed legislation that enables another step in the 25th Amendment process. The 25th Amendment process is when it is determined that the president is unfit for whatever reason to be president of the United States, in case some people don't know what that is. And he clearly has indicated that over and over again. And by inciting sedition, as he did yesterday, he must be removed from office. While it's only 13 days left, any day can be a horror show for America. So the next step would be that Congress, and this can be done quickly, can establish a commission very fast of maybe former presidents, cabinet people who know something about health, the health of the president and the rest, and that group can make its recommendations to the Congress. The list goes on. Having said that, if the best route, the most immediate route would be the vice president to recognize the danger of the Donald Trump presidency and take this action. A. B, my members are very much interested, as are, my phone is exploding with impeach. But president must be held accountable again. He likes...
How do you have enough time for impeachment?
We would be prepared to do that, but I don't have immediate plans because we haven't even been to sleep since the folly of the Republicans deciding we should go until 4 o'clock in the morning for no purpose whatsoever except to be enablers of the president's sedition by undermining the elections. Imagine that, the President of the United States undermining the elections in our country. So in any event, we would be prepared.
How long are you willing to give Pence? 24 hours, 48 hours?
I don't know how quickly he might respond. We'll see. And that could be quick.
You said there's great urgency. The clock
Yeah.
is clearly ticking. There's 13 days.
That's right.
How long are you willing to give the cabinet and Pence until they make
Well, I think that they will.
start your own procedure?
I don't think that it'll take long to get an answer from the vice president. It'll either be yes or it will be no, and we'll see. But we
Today?
want to make sure,
Today, do you expect an answer today?
we would hope, but Mr. Schumer, the new majority leader of the Senate, and I have made our interest in this known. So we'll see what they come back with. But they have to answer for it. And in answering for whether they're prepared to do that, they are answering for the behavior of Donald Trump.
You could go straight
Yes,
to the
sir.
floor next week.
I'm sorry. Yes, sir. Yes, I'll tell you.
The security breaches here. Chuck Schumer's talking about firing the sergeant at arms over there. Are you thinking of a similar step over here? What are you going to do to address the security breaches on the Capitol?
Well, let me just say that is a very important question. Let me hold for a moment because it is not, we have to do the after-action review. I am calling for the resignation of the chief of the Capitol Police, Mr. Sund, and I have received notice from Mr. Irving that he will be submitting his resignation. Having said that, we'll have the after-action review, but it goes beyond the Capitol Police. It goes to the FBI. What was the shortcoming in their intelligence that they provided? It goes to the Department of Defense. How long did it take for them to respond or anticipate the need for the National Guard? It goes to many other elements of the executive branch, and I think we have to have the full review. But from the standpoint of, well, let me just say this, many of our Capitol Police just acted so bravely and so with such concern for the staff, for the members, for the Capitol of the United States. Many of them, and they deserve our gratitude. But there was a failure of leadership at the top of the Capitol Police, and I think Mr. Sund, he hasn't even called us since this happened. You know, so I had made aware that I would be saying that we're calling for his resignation. Now, in that score, getting back to what was underestimated, that the President of the United States would not be as insightful. Perhaps somebody thought for a moment that he would be patriotic before he leaves office for just this once. So again, the fact that these people were incited, and you know what? Last night, I don't know if you heard on the floor, but some of the Republicans and their enabling of the president's bad behavior have said those were not Trumpites, they were Antifa invading the Capitol, disguised as Trumpites, right? So we have a problem here with the enabling that is going on with the Republicans in the Congress as well. And undermining the election, again, enabling the president, and if they don't recognize what yesterday was, a threshold was crossed of such magnitude that there is no way that this president should be allowed to make any decision to rouse any troops and of his Trumpites what's next? What happens today? Who knows? But what we do know, that he must be contained. Any other questions? Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yes, yes, ma'am.
So I wanted
Yes,
to
ma'am.
ask, for the inauguration, what are your plans? How are those changing, and how do you plan to keep members and people in the Capitol secure at that time?
Well, I'll go back to my original point. We have 13 days more of Donald Trump to deal with, who was a danger to our country. So when we talk about the inauguration, that is a national security event. And that rises to a different level of security protection. We want every day at the Capitol to be deemed a national security event so that there's no, well, I didn't know, and blah, blah, blah. That highest level of concern, intelligence seeking, redundancy if necessary to protect. We've been working a long time on the inauguration, and just in terms of coronavirus, another shortcoming of the president, people have died because of his denial, distortion, and the rest, calling it a hoax. This man is deadly to our democracy and to our people. But to get to your point, so because of coronavirus, in our meetings on the intelligence, on the inauguration, as far as we have jurisdiction in the Congress, but then it becomes the purview of the presidential now designee, Joe Biden. But to the point that we had that, the decision was encouraged to just have a very small inauguration. I don't know what is in the public domain on it, but I'm not going to put that out there, except that it would be very small and hopefully have a celebration at some later time when we're not coronavirus sensitive. Now, on top of that, to see what happened yesterday, if there's any, I don't want to use the word benefit because there's nothing could justify, but if there's anything learned about it is that we have to be very, very careful because these people and their leader, Donald Trump, do not care about the security of people. They don't care about our democracy. They don't care about the peaceful transfer of power. Something is very, very wrong here. Now, let me just say one more thing about what he did yesterday and relating to other national security events. People saw throughout the world something that looked like it was out of a banana republic or some other kind of a third world, where the president of the country turned on the people. And what was sad about it is, of course, as members of Congress, we sign up. We sign up for the exposure that we have. But to see in the eyes of so many of the staff people, especially the younger ones, the trauma, the fright that it was for them to be locked into rooms with terrorists banging on the doors, hiding under desks, under tables, and the rest of that. They didn't sign up for that. We didn't sign them up for that. A blessing to be interested in public service, to learn from it here, perhaps to go on into public service, but to carry that important value into whatever they do in life. But to meet with them and to see how frightened they were, how traumatized they were, because these thugs, these Trump thugs, decided that they would desecrate the Capitol with no thought of what harm they might do physically, psychologically, or in any other way. And they will be prosecuted. And they will be prosecuted. Justice will be done. So in terms of the inauguration, I don't know if it could be made any smaller, but I don't trust whatever the president might have in mind, because I do not trust, because I think he's a very dangerous man. So again, we'll review what our options are in terms of the 25th Amendment, review what our options are. If he wants to be unique and be doubly impeached, that's kind of up to him and his cabinet as to whether he should stay in office. Impeached, defeated, impeached, gone. And it's really a sad tragedy for our country. I say I pray for the president every day, and I do. Last night was the hardest day for me. Night, like 5 o'clock in the morning when I finally got home, as I was praying at night, you got to keep praying for me. You've got to keep praying for me. Maybe there's some hope. But we can't take that chance because people's lives are at stake as well as our democracy. That's it for now. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, is the president...
All right, guys. Wow. So, pretty dark times that we're in here. That was a really intense press briefing from House Majority Leader Nancy Pelosi. Just at the end there, I wanted to highlight just a few things that she said, and then what we're going to do is we are going to play back Joe Biden making an announcement for who he's choosing for his Department of Justice. You're tuning in because you saw Nancy Pelosi was speaking. Welcome. My name is Brendan Plank. This is Reflect News. Hit that subscribe button if you're new. And if you're returning, welcome back. So just at the end here, we have Nancy Pelosi saying that Donald Trump turned on the American people. Talking about the struggle of seeing young staffers hiding in rooms. And she says the terrorists were banging on the doors. And then right after that saying the Trump thugs desecrated the Capitol. But then firmly saying that they will be prosecuted. I mean, that was an intense moment there. She is obviously coming at this from a position of power, now having the Senate in control of Democrats and the presidency. Nancy's been waiting. She's been waiting, for those two to come through, and now they have, and she is meeting, these Trump thugs, the acts that we saw yesterday, very firmly and boldly. And that's what you do when you're a leader like Nancy Pelosi. That's why she is in the position she's in. And she pretty much laid it out. The options for removal are clear. They can, you lost because you were defeated, right? Or we can impeach you again, doubly impeached, she said. Either way, you're gone. Nancy Pelosi, well done. Well done. That was an intense but well-needed press briefing. Okay, so we are going to move on to Joe Biden giving his pick for, let's see here, boom. Yeah, okay. This is where he is going to nominate, announce his nominees for the Department of Justice, including Merrick Garland, the Supreme Court nominee who wasn't under Barack Obama. So let's get into this.
You're all going to have a lot of questions, but I want to focus on the issue today, the judiciary, as well as what we're talking about, the Attorney General's office. And so I'll have plenty of time to ask the questions I know you desperately want to ask about everything from the 25th Amendment on, but I'm not going to speak to that today. I want this to be the issue that we focus on because I think it's so important. Yesterday, in my view, one of the darkest days in the history of our nation. An unprecedented assault on our democracy. An assault literally on the citadel of liberty in the United States Capitol itself. An assault on the rule of law. An assault on the most sacred of American undertakings, ratifying the will of the people in choosing the leadership of their government. All of us here grieve the loss of life, grieve the desecration of the people's house. But what we witnessed yesterday was not dissent, it was not disorder, it was not protest, it was chaos. They weren't protesters. Don't dare call them protesters. They were a riotous mob, insurrectionists, domestic terrorists. It's that basic, it's that simple. And I wish we could say we couldn't see it coming. But that isn't true. We could see it coming. The past 4 years, we've had a president who's made his contempt for our democracy, our Constitution, the rule of law, clear in everything he has done. He unleashed an all-out assault on our institutions of our democracy from the outset. And yesterday was but the culmination of that unrelenting attack. He's attacked the free press, who dared to question his power, repeatedly calling the free press the enemy of the people. Language, at the time he first used it, I and others said, has long been used by autocrats and dictators all over the world to hold on to power, the enemy of the people. Language that is being used now by autocrats and dictators across the world, only this time with the imperator of an outgoing president of the United States of America. He's attacked our intelligence services, who dared tell the American people the truth about the effort of a foreign power to elect him 4 years ago, choosing instead to believe the word of Vladimir Putin over the word of those who've sworn their allegiance to this nation, many of whom had risked their lives in the service of this nation. He deployed the United States military, tear gassing peaceful protesters in pursuit of a photo opportunity in the service of his reelection, even holding the Bible upside down. The action that led to an apology from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and an outspoken denunciation of the use of military for domestic political purposes from scores of former military leaders and secretaries of defense, led by Secretary Cheney. He thought he could stack the courts with friendly judges who would support him no matter what. They were Trump judges, his judges. He went so far as to say he needed 9 justices on the Supreme Court because he thought the election would end up in the Supreme Court and they would hand him the election. He was stunned, truly stunned, when the judges he appointed didn't do his bidding, instead acted with integrity, following the Constitution, upholding the rule of law, not just once or twice or 3 times, but over 60 times. Let me say over 60 times. In more than 60 cases, in state after state after state. And then at the Supreme Court, as judges, including people considered, quote, his judges, Trump judges, use his words, looked at the allegations that Trump was making and determined they were without any merit. Nothing was judged to put this election in question or doubt by any of these judges. You want to understand the importance of democratic institutions in this country? Take a look at the judiciary in this nation. Take a look at the pressure it was just subjected to by a sitting president of the United States of America. At every level, the judiciary rose to the moment during this election, did its job, acted with complete fairness and impartiality, with complete honor and integrity. When history looks back in this moment that we've just passed through, I believe it will say our democracy survived in no small part because of the men and women who represent an independent judiciary in this nation. We owe them a deep, deep debt of gratitude. And then there's the attack on the Department of Justice, treating the Attorney General as his personal lawyer and the department as his personal law firm. Through it all, we would hear the same thing from this president. My generals, my judges, my Attorney General. And then yesterday, a culmination of an attack on our institutions of democracy. This time, the Congress itself, inciting a mob to attack the Capitol, to threaten elected representatives of the people of this nation, and even the Vice President, to stop the Congress from ratifying the will of the American people in a just completed free and fair election. Trying to use a mob to silence the voices of nearly 160 million Americans who summoned the courage in the face of a pandemic that threatened their health and their lives to cast that sacred ballot. I made it clear from the moment I entered this race that what I believe was at stake. I said there was nothing less at stake than who we are as a nation, what we stand for, what we believe, what we will be. At the center of that belief is one of the oldest principles this nation has long held. We are a government of laws, not of men, not of the people, of laws. I said it many times in the campaign. Our democratic institutions are not relics of another age. They're what sets this nation apart. They're the guardrails of our democracy. And there's no president. That's why there is no president who is a king. No Congress that's a House of Lords. A judiciary doesn't serve the will of the president or exist to protect him or her. We have three co-equal branches of government. Co-equal. Our president is not above the law. Justice serves the people. It doesn't protect the powerful. Justice is blind. What we saw yesterday, in plain view, was another violation of the fundamental tenet of this nation. Not only do we see the failure to protect one of the three branches of our government, we also saw a clear failure to carry out equal justice. I don't know if you used to say in the Senate, excuse a point of personal privilege. A little over an hour and a half after the chaos started, I got a text from my granddaughter, Finnegan Biden, who's a senior in her last semester at the University of Pennsylvania. She sent me a photo of military people in full military gear, scores of them lining the steps of the Lincoln Memorial because of protests by Black Lives Matter. She said, "Pop, this isn't fair. No one can tell me that if had been a group of Black Lives Matter protesting yesterday, they wouldn't have been treated very, very differently than the mob of thugs that stormed the Capitol." We all know that's true. And it is unacceptable, totally unacceptable. The American people saw it in plain view. And I hope it sensitized them to what we have to do. Not many people know it. When Justice Garland and I were talking, we talked about, I think he raised it, the reason for the Justice Department was formed in the first place. It was back in 1870. We didn't have a Justice Department before that, the cabinet. It was formed in 1870 to enforce the Civil Rights Amendment that grew out of the Civil War, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, to stand up to the Klan, to stand up to racism, to take on domestic terrorism. This original spirit must again guide and animate its work. So as we stand here today, we do so in the wake of yesterday's events that could not more have vividly demonstrated some of the most important work we have to do in this nation. Committing ourselves to the rule of law in this nation, invigorating our domestic and democratic institutions, carrying out equal justice under the law in America. There is no more important place for us to do this work than the Department of Justice that has been so politicized. There's no more important people to carry out this work than the people I'm announcing today. More than anything, we need to restore the honor, the integrity, the independence of the Department of Justice in this nation that's been so badly damaged. And so many former leaders of that department in both parties have so testified and stated that. I want to be clear to those who lead this department who you will serve. You won't work for me. You are not the president or the vice president's lawyer. Your loyalty is not to me. It's to the law, the Constitution, the people of this nation, to guarantee justice. For Attorney General of the United States, I nominate a man of impeccable integrity, Judge Merrick Garland, one of the most respected jurists of our time, brilliant yet humble, distinguished yet modest, full of character and decency. A Supreme Court clerk, served in the Justice Department during the Carter, Bush 41, and Clinton administrations, where he embraced the department's core values of independence and integrity. A federal prosecutor who took on terrorism and corruption and violent crime, always with the utmost professionalism and the duty to the oath he swore. Nominated by President Clinton to be a judge on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, considered the second most powerful court in America. Throughout such a long and distinguished career, Judge Garland has earned the praise and admiration of members of bench and bar and politicians of both parties. And despite his busy schedule and prestigious positions, he still makes time to volunteer regularly, tutoring students in Northeast D.C., as he's done for 20 years. It's about character. It's about character. It was no surprise why President Obama nominated him, Judge Garland, to the Supreme Court. As I said, he embodies honor, decency, integrity, fidelity to the rule of law, and judicial independence. To those same traits, he will now bring, as Attorney General of the United States, not as a personal attorney to the president, but as the people's lawyer. He'll restore trust in the rule of law and equal justice under the law. And I fully expect, in discussions I've had, that he will receive a fair hearing and swift confirmation. And once he's confirmed, I will move promptly to nominate his replacement on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. And I expect that the distinguished nominee will receive a prompt and fair hearing as well. For Deputy Attorney General, I nominate one of the most selfless people I've worked with, one of the brightest I've worked with, and I worked with her during the last administration, a 15-year veteran of the Justice Department, Lisa Monaco. Lisa knows the department inside and out. She is a definition of what a public servant should be: decent, trusted, honorable. And I might add, I embarrassed her a moment ago with the other colleagues, and selfless. I offered her other positions that are of greater consequence, quote unquote, more prestige. But she wanted to work with you, Judge. She wanted to go back to the Justice Department. A top-flight prosecutor who took on public corruption, corporate fraud, and violent crime. Chief of Staff to the Director of the FBI, the first woman ever confirmed as Assistant Attorney General for National Security, where she elevated cybersecurity to a top priority, and where it's even more consequential today than it was then. At the White House, she was the top Homeland Security and counterterrorism advisor to President Obama and me in every one of the national security meetings. She coordinated our fight against al-Qaeda and ISIL. She helped lead our response to the Ebola crisis. When the bombs went off at the finish line on Patriots' Day in Boston, her hometown, she coordinated the federal government's response with local and state law enforcement to get to the bottom of this horrible tragedy. Lisa, I know you will help restore integrity and independence of the Department of Justice that you so revere. As Associate Attorney General, the number 3 job at the department, I nominate Vanita Gupta, a woman I've known for some time, one of the most respected civil rights lawyers in America. started her career at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, then on to the ACLU, both organizations to which I belong, and then to the Justice Department during the Obama-Biden administration, where she led the Civil Rights Division. At every step, with every case, she fought for greater equity and the right to right the wrongs of a justice system where they existed. And she's done so by bringing people together, earning praise from across the ideological spectrum for her approach to solving some of the thorniest problems we face. During the Obama-Biden administration, Vanita was put in charge of investigating the abuse of power in police departments in Ferguson, Missouri, and other communities torn apart by acts of violence and racial injustice. She helped institute common-sense police reforms to build greater equity, safety, and trust. She was commended for her work by both law enforcement and those advocating for changes in the criminal justice system. That's a rare achievement, and it speaks volumes about her capacity to unite people in common purpose, which is what this is all about, uniting the American people. Born in Philadelphia, a proud daughter of immigrants from India. That sound familiar? If confirmed, Vanita will be the first woman of color to serve as Associate Attorney General. And I'm grateful that Vanita is leaving her current job, leading one of the premier civil rights organizations in the world, as she answers the call to serve once again to ensure that our justice system is even more fair and more equitable. Thank you. For Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, I nominate Kristen Clark, who has spent her career advocating for greater equality and equity in our justice system. The daughter of Jamaican immigrants. Now, don't think this has been designed here. I'm still looking for an Irishman. All kidding aside, the daughter of Jamaican immigrants, Kristen, is also one of the most distinguished civil rights attorneys in America. A proud native of Brooklyn, New York, she began her career, her legal career, in the very same office she's now nominated to lead. Her previous tenure with the Justice Department saw her take on some of the most complex civil rights cases, from voting rights to redistricting challenges to prosecuting hate crimes and human trafficking. She's earned accolades throughout her career, including as the head of the Civil Rights Bureau for her home state of New York, where she's led the charge to end the school-to-prison pipeline and root out discrimination in housing and in law enforcement. She currently leads one of the nation's top civil rights organizations, where she promotes greater equity in voting rights, in our education system, in our housing system, in our justice system, and so much more. Now, she'll return full circle to pursue the vital work where her career began. The Civil Rights Division represents the moral center of the Department of Justice and the heart of that fundamental American ideal that we're all created equal and all deserve to be treated equally. I'm honored you've accepted the call to return to make real the promise for all Americans. To each of you, I thank you for your service, and to your families. And to the American people, this is a team that will restore your trust and faith in our institutions of democracy. I chaired the Judiciary Committee for many years. One of my goals in running in the first place, you may recall, I said when I saw those people coming out of the fields in Charlottesville, shouting hate, a young woman killed. And when asked, the president said there are good people on both sides. That's literally why I ran. So there's no more important and heartfelt effort on my part than restoring the independence and integrity of our Justice Department. So may God bless you all. May God protect our troops and those who are sworn to protect the American people. Now I will turn it over to the team, starting with the next attorney
Okay.
to the United States.
So he's
Attorney
going
General of the
to-
United States, Judge Merrick Garland.
So he's going to let Merrick. Let's get a good shot of Joe here, hanging out, looking good. Welcome in, everybody. If you're new to the channel, my name is Brendan Plank. I created Reflect News here, so be sure to subscribe, hit that like button for the live stream. If you're just joining us or you kind of met us halfway through, Joe Biden responding to the mess in the Capitol today. He kind of built up his rhetoric. Started just by talking about Donald Trump using autocratic rhetoric, right? Talking about his ties to Russia, talking about him holding the Bible upside down, and how that, at least for me, that brought up, the images of the tear gas and the police clearing out Lafayette Park across the street from the White House, so that Donald Trump could have that photo op with the upside down Bible. But just by him just talking about that Bible brought up, a lot of imagery, and probably, will for most Americans. And then just kind of went into Trump being violent, and that's what that is. That's what that also connotated, at least for me. We're seeing Trump violence everywhere. I mean, and that goes back to did what happened at the Capitol really surprise any of us? Not really, because Donald Trump, he's been a violent president back when there were people punching people at his rallies, right? So we kind of knew that these people would do this, right? And then also the people who were at Charlottesville, which interestingly Joe Biden brought up twice, right, in this speech alone. And so then he kind of got to the point for why he's there today, and that's the Department of Justice. And that is to basically restore honor to the Department of Justice, because then he slid into talking about the mob that Trump used to silence voters, the mob of thugs, and how it was unacceptable. So Joe Biden being very firm, stern here, and just as Nancy Pelosi is doing, he wants these people to be charged and charged to the fullest extent of the law. Remember, he's introducing his nominees for the Department of Justice here. Then he went on to talk about reaffirming the democratic institutions, carrying out the law. He was starting to talk very forcefully, which almost to me sounded like, I'm also kind of looking for Joe Biden to make to give me any insight into how he's going to treat Donald Trump after Donald Trump leaves office. And then that got me thinking, okay, well, is Joe Biden going to be the one who's going to go after Donald Trump, or is it's going to have to come from the Senate, right? Because presidents don't really go after presidents. If that makes sense, that's just not the way it goes down. Because that's why we have the Senate here, and that's actually turns our attention to Georgia, why that was so important that Democrats grabbed control of the Senate. And that's because now Senate investigations are going to be controlled by Democratic run committees. So we're going to have investigations into whatever those senators think are the worthy of investigating. And so that's going to be interesting to see if Americans continue to put pressure on Donald Trump, in the months after he's left office, because we're still in a huge mess that he's largely created with his ignorance, and we're going to be in this mess for a long time. And there are going to be stories that are going to come out that are going to paint them in just, they're going to tell us more about, the things that could have been done to make it so that we aren't as we aren't in the position that we're in right now, the weakened position that we're in right now as a nation. And that goes back to Joe Biden, here talking about the Department of Justice and talking about building back from being damaged. Really, really important. So again, I was looking for him to kind of give me any sign of what he was going to do with Donald Trump, and I didn't really see it. Now that also got me thinking about, and I'm almost done here, but the next people who are going to talk right now, because they're all the people that he just introduced, they're going to get up, they're going to speak, and I'm going to be listening for them talking about maybe the Trump administration, which I don't think they're going to do. I think these are professionals, and so I think they're just going to give us what we can expect over the next 15, 20 minutes in this. These speeches are pretty much just an introduction for just who they are, and also kind of their brief view of the law, right, or of justice. So let's get into that. But again, pretty firm speech from Joe Biden. Sounds like they're going to go after the mobsters, Trump's mobsters. And I mean, if anything, I think Joe Biden's ready to go after Donald Trump. So that's what I'm going to be listening for. Let's get back into these speeches. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for hitting the like button and for subscribing. And let's get it going.
States, Judge Merrick Garland. Thank you.
Thank you, President-elect Biden, Vice President-elect Harris, for asking me to serve as the Attorney General of the United States. Thanks always to my wife, children, sisters, late parents, without whose unstinting support I would not be standing here today. Thanks also to my grandparents, whose decision to undertake the difficult journey to America made all things possible for my family. If confirmed, I look forward to working with these wonderful DOJ veterans, Lisa Monaco, Vanita Gupta, and Kristen Clark. Entering the Department of Justice will be a kind of homecoming for me. My very first job after serving as a judicial law clerk was to work as a special assistant to then Attorney General Ben Civiletti. Ed Levy and Griffin Bell, the first attorneys general appointed after Watergate, had enunciated the norms that would ensure the department's adherence to the rule of law. Attorney General Civiletti undertook to continue their work of crafting those norms into written policies. Those policies included guaranteeing the independence of the department from partisan influence in law enforcement investigations, regulating communications with the White House, establishing guidelines for FBI investigations, ensuring respect for the professionalism of DOJ's lawyers and agents, and setting out principles to guide the exercise of prosecutorial discretion. Those policies became part of the DNA of every career lawyer and agent. If confirmed, my mission as Attorney General will be to reaffirm those policies as the principles upon which the department operates. As Ed Levy said at his own swearing-in, nothing can more weaken the quality of life or more imperil the realization of the goals we all hold dear than our failure to make clear by words and deed that our law is not the instrument of partisan purpose. In the decades that followed my first tour of duty at the department, I returned again and again in different roles. As a career line assistant U.S. attorney, as a criminal division supervisor, and finally as a senior official in the Office of the Deputy Attorney General. In the latter role, I worked with every component of the department on issues ranging from civil rights and antitrust to domestic terrorism and national security. I also worked directly with line prosecutors and agents in offices from Oklahoma City to Billings, Montana, from Sacramento, California to New York City. Attorney General, later Supreme Court Justice Robert Jackson famously said, "The citizen's safety lies in the prosecutor who tempers zeal with human kindness, who seeks truth and not victims, who serves the law and not factional purposes, and who approaches his job with humility." That was the kind of prosecutor I tried to be during my years of service at DOJ. In 1997, I left the department to serve the cause of justice in another role. As a judge, I have loved being a judge. But to serve as Attorney General at this critical time, to lead the more than 113,000 dedicated men and women who work at the department to ensure the rule of law, is a calling I am honored and eager to answer. As everyone who watched yesterday's events in Washington now understands, if they did not understand before, the rule of law is not just some lawyer's turn of phrase. It is the very foundation of our democracy. The essence of the rule of law is that like cases are treated alike, that there not be one rule for Democrats and another for Republicans, one rule for friends, another for foes, one rule for the powerful, another for the powerless, one rule for the rich and another for the poor, or different rules depending upon one's race or ethnicity. And the essence of its great corollary, equal justice under law, is that all citizens are protected in the exercise of their civil rights. Those ideals have animated the Department of Justice since the very moment of its inception. As President-elect Biden just recounted, the department was founded in the midst of Reconstruction following the Civil War, with its first principal task to ensure compliance with the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. As historian Ron Chernow wrote, quote, "The new Justice Department would forge its identity in the battle to slay the first incarnation of the Ku Klux Klan and its offshoots. In that battle, the department successfully deployed its considerable resources to ensure civil rights, which were under militant attack." These principles, ensuring the rule of law and making the promise of equal justice under law real, are the great principles upon which the Department of Justice was founded and for which it must always stand. They echo today in the priorities that lie before us, from ensuring racial equity in our justice system to meeting the evolving threat of violent extremism. If confirmed, those are the principles to which I will be devoted as Attorney General. President-elect Biden understands this. As he said today and as he has publicly said before, quote, "It's not my Justice Department, it's the people's Justice Department." He promised that the person he chose to lead the department would have the, quote, "independent capacity to decide who gets prosecuted and who doesn't." Vice President-elect Harris has also publicly stated, quote, "Any decision coming out of the Justice Department should be based on facts, it should be based on the law, it should not be based on politics, period." I could not agree more. And I would not have agreed to be considered for Attorney General under any other conditions. So thank you both for giving me the opportunity to serve.
Mr. President-elect, Madam Vice President-elect, thank you for this opportunity to return to the Department of Justice and to work alongside this incredible team on behalf of the American people. I also want to thank my family for their love and support, and especially my parents for their lessons, large and small, in what it means to live one's values. It's fair to say that I grew up in the Justice Department. It was my privilege for 15 years to serve that institution and to learn so much from its extraordinary people, to learn what it means to be a lawyer in public service. And over the years, I have worn many hats: as a career prosecutor, as a senior official in the FBI, and as a leader of the National Security Division. But it was as an assistant U.S. attorney that I learned the Justice Department's values. I worked directly with communities and victims of crime, and I felt the weight of a prosecutor's responsibility to ensure not that cases are won, but that justice is done, and that each individual defendant's rights are protected. These experiences forged in me a reverence for the Department of Justice as an institution, for its people, for its mission, for the enduring values that it represents: the protection of civil rights and civil liberties, safeguarding the public from threats of all kinds, and upholding the rule of law. Merrick's mention of former Attorney General Edward Levy calls to mind one of my earliest memories as a DOJ lawyer. My first job in the department was as counsel to Janet Reno, the first woman Attorney General, a mentor to me and a trailblazer. In the conference room outside her office, she hung a portrait of Ed Levy, a tribute to his role in reaffirming the integrity and independence of the institution after Watergate. And I think she hung that portrait as a testament of sorts to the fact that we are all temporary custodians of the institution. The story goes that when President Ford asked Levy what he thought the department needed most in those days of flagging faith in institutions, Levy responded, "A soul." Well, the soul of the Justice Department lives in the integrity of its career professionals, in the independence of its investigations and prosecutions, and in the principles it brings to bear as it stewards the ideal of justice in America. Today, we are at another inflection point. Some of the challenges we face are familiar: racial inequality, the need for criminal justice reform, domestic terrorism, and threats to public safety. Some of the tasks are enduring, like the importance of working closely with law enforcement to ensure public safety and to build trust in our communities. Some of the challenges are evolving, like mounting cyber threats. I'm confident that the Department of Justice is up to all of these challenges. But what is most critical, I think, in the days ahead is not actually a challenge at all, but an opportunity for this team and for the career professionals who make up the Justice Department to reaffirm its norms and traditions, to do justice without fear or favor, to keep the American people safe, and to do so always consistent with the rule of law. If confirmed, it will be my honor to once again work alongside the women and men of the Justice Department as custodians of a remarkable and durable institution. Mr. President-elect, Madam Vice President-elect, thank you for the opportunity to return home to the Department of Justice.
Mr. President-elect, Madam Vice President, thank you for the opportunity to serve this nation. I want to thank my family and my parents who taught me early on the values that have led me to civil rights work and public service. I am humbled and honored to return to the Department of Justice. It is an institution that I love so, so dearly. And to once again work alongside the exceptional women and men who every day defend the Constitution, enforce our federal laws, and seek to create a more perfect union with deep integrity and without political interference. There are many agencies in the federal government, but actually only one that bears the name of a value. By virtue of that name, that value of justice, we know the department carries a unique charge and North Star. At its best, it is the keeper of a sacred promise. It's the promise of equal justice for all, that no one is above the law. And when this promise is pursued with vigor, it brings light to our nation and serves as a beacon to the world. But when abandoned, we degrade our democracy and sow the division that we've come to know all too well. The first time I felt the absence of that promise was as a 4-year-old child, one of my earliest memories. My parents were proud immigrants from India, an opportunity that was made possible by the Civil Rights Movement and the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act. One day I was sitting in a McDonald's restaurant with my sister, mother, and grandmother. And as we ate our meals, a group of skinheads at the next table began shouting ethnic slurs at us, throwing food at us until we had to leave the restaurant. It is an early memory, but one that is seared in my mind. That feeling never left me, of what it means to be made to feel unsafe because of who you are. I kept another feeling with me, though, too, and that is one that has been ingrained in me by my parents and shared by my husband, whose family fled violence and war in Vietnam and sought refuge on these shores. They believed more than anything in the promise of America, and that loving this country brings with it the obligation to do the necessary work to make it better. Those two feelings, for me, converge in the work ahead of us. Yesterday's horrific events at the Capitol reminded us that our democracy cannot be taken for granted, that our nation has a long history of disinformation, white supremacist violence, mob violence. It also reminded us that our values and our Constitution and our democracy, these do not protect themselves. It is people with courage who do that. And I am honored to return to a department that I know will push every day for justice, accountability, and equality under the law. It will not be enough to restore what has been undermined or lost. This moment demands bold leadership. The Department of Justice, as it has done throughout its storied history, will have to uncover and reckon with hard truths, hold people, companies, and institutions accountable to our Constitution and laws, drive change where there is injustice, and heal a nation that is starving for leadership and decency and hope. Now is the time to ensure that our economic system works for everyone, that we can protect the health and safety of all of the American people, and that we will harness all of the Justice Department's levers for civil rights, justice and police reform, and climate justice, and so much more. As the late Congressman John Lewis said, democracy is not a state, it is an act. And I pledge to the American people that if confirmed, I will act for justice every day. I pledge that to you, President-elect. I pledge that to you, Vice President-elect. I am honored, deeply honored, for the chance to work together with activists for justice, with law enforcement, with this extraordinary team that I'm so humbled to serve, with the incredible women and men at the Justice Department to strengthen our democracy and to make equal justice under law a real promise for all. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Mr. President-elect, Madam Vice President-elect, it's an honor and a privilege to be nominated to return to the Department of Justice and serve the American people at this critical moment in our democracy. I am humbled and exceedingly proud to join the remarkable team that you have put together to pursue the urgent, timeless cause of equal justice under law. I stand here today deeply inspired by the example of the late Thurgood Marshall, Constance Baker Motley, and other public servants who dedicated their lives to advancing the cause of justice. We are at a crossroads. If I am fortunate enough to be confirmed, we will turn the page on hate and close the door on discrimination by enforcing our federal civil rights laws. Growing up in Brooklyn, New York, my parents instilled in me an unrelenting belief in the principles of hard work and respect for the dignity and humanity of all people. I am deeply thankful for the trail that my parents blazed, and today I'm thinking about the pride that I know my mother, Pansy, my brother, Troy, my sister, Karen, and my partner, Mustafa, are feeling as I take on this challenging new opportunity. As a mom myself now, I see the future of America through the eyes of my son. And honestly, at times I am worried. Will he have full and equal access to the extraordinary opportunities of American life? Will he be able to embrace those opportunities in safety and dignity? Will all of America's children? Every parent lays awake some nights asking these same questions. I know that my own parents did. I was fortunate to benefit from amazing educational opportunities and plenty of lucky breaks that opened doors for me. But I know then, as I know today, that not everyone is blessed with the opportunities that I enjoyed. And that awareness has animated my life's work. It's what brought me to the Department of Justice, where I started my career, and it's what brings me back for this homecoming today. The department, and especially the Civil Rights Division, has always occupied a special place in my heart. The clarion call of equal justice under law is what binds us together as a nation. Now it's my honor to return to work alongside the dedicated career professionals who give of themselves every day to make that principle real in the lives of families like mine, in my son's life, and in the lives of all of our sons and daughters. I know the passion and fearlessness that both the President-elect and the Vice President-elect bring to the work before us, to restore justice, to heal our nation, and to move us closer to that ideal of equal justice. I'm humbled, honored, and eager to work with them and with this team. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to serve my country as a member of your administration.
One of the fundamental principles upon which America's democracy rests, a principle as sacred as a civic value can be, is fidelity to the rule of law. In times of stability, that principle can seem abstract, like something out of a legal textbook that isn't relevant to our daily lives. But in times of upheaval, we come to realize, to appreciate, just how vital the rule of law truly is. What we saw yesterday in our nation's capital was, as the president-elect has called it, an assault on the rule of law. And it has no place in our democracy. So I believe we must ask ourselves two questions about what happened yesterday. What went wrong, and how do we make it right? And I believe the answers require us to recognize that the challenge we're facing in our country is about more than the actions of the few we watched yesterday. It's about how to reform, how to transform a justice system that does not work equally for all. A justice system that is experienced differently depending on whether you're white or black. A justice system that is experienced differently if you're rich or poor. A justice system that's different depending on whether your job requires you to take a shower before you go to work or requires you to take a shower when you come home after work. We witnessed two systems of justice. When we saw one that let extremists storm the United States Capitol, and another that released tear gas on peaceful protesters last summer. The American people have expressed brightly outrage. We know this is unacceptable. We know we should be better than this. The promise of our country is that all people will be treated equally. That's what the rule of law is supposed to be about. That's what the ideal of equal justice under law is all about. Like everyone here, I've dedicated my career to helping uphold those principles, to attempting to uphold those principles, to helping build a more just and equal America, whether it was as San Francisco's district attorney or California's attorney general or a United States senator. And that's what I have pledged to the president-elect that I will do as vice president. The public servants we are announcing today have also dedicated themselves to building a more just and equal America. And the roles they will assume are some of the most important in our country, and especially right now. They will be responsible for pursuing justice and ensuring that all Americans are treated equally. They will be the guardians of our justice system. They will have the power to enforce our laws in a more fair and more humane manner, while also holding those who violate the law accountable, whether they be ordinary citizens or law enforcement. They will help protect the rights of every voter in our country, no matter what their background or where they live. and they will restore integrity and independence to the Department of Justice and rebuild the American people's trust in that most sacred institution. And I know they will do this because these nominees have the experience, the judgment, and moral compass that these roles demand, as well as an abiding commitment to supporting and defending the Constitution of the United States of America. For many centuries, the ideal of justice has been symbolized as a woman blindfolded with a scale in her hands. There is a reason the eyes of that Lady Justice are covered. It's because our belief in what a system of justice is says that it should not depend, justice should not depend on how you look, on the color of your skin, on how much money you make. It shouldn't depend on where you were born or the language your grandmother speaks or what political party you belong to. Justice should be impartial. It should be fair. It should be applied equally. And President-elect Biden and I, along with this incredible team, will help to make sure it is, while restoring and strengthening the rule of law that has always been and always will be the bedrock of America's democracy. Thank you, Mr. President-elect. Thank you.
We had some questions there about Donald Trump being removed, 25th Amendment, not saying much. What I will say, though, about, having Kamala Harris there to wrap up, she is just a really fantastic leader, and she is going to make an awesome president, I guess. So yeah, in all this darkness, let's end with some light. If anything else goes down today, guys, I will jump back on and stream. Again, thank you for liking the live stream and subscribing. If you are new, you can also click that join button if you want to take part in the next chat to become a member. And your membership helps me make more videos. You can also follow me on Twitter at brendanplank.com. But be sure to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you get the next live stream delivered straight to you. Until